Hello everyone. Well, this is definitely going to be an interesting video to talk about. So before I get started, here's some context. In the seventh and final season of Star Trek Next Generation episode called Lower Decks, X aired, as one of the last and arguably one of the best episodes of the series, it focused on crew members that are on the lower decks of the Enterprise D, who don't get as much main focus as the other characters. Pardon me. But are still vital to keeping in the ship, her crew, and her interests as going, and where no one has gone before. And to that end, now, in the year 2020, he entirely new who animated a comedy series by one of the main writers, Rick and Morty. He wishes to explore that concept further, fittingly titled Star Trek Lower Decks. Which starts streaming on CBS All Access. As though it only really recently premiered here this week. This month. I definitely the second episode going to be streaming this week by the time. It might, but depending where you are, you might already have access to it by the time you watch this. As as which is definitely a much more or tongue-in-cheek and often and raunchy take on the series, and so here are my brief reaction and thoughts based on the first episode, Ode, Second Contact. So, as the title implies, the episode focuses not on the first contact from the alien race, which tends to be establishing the connections between that humanity, but rather the second contact, which, as the episode seems to infer, is every bit as important. It does a fairly good job establishing not only the crew of the USS Cerritos, who's a ship which is definitely in a different part of the universe, one, but also the eponymous lower decks members of the crew, well, let me put it this way. As you may see in some promotional images as well as the episode itself, as opposed to Picard takes his tea or grey hot, one of the ensigns introduced who's casually drinking a bottle of ramen and whiskey like it's 40 of OE. And so, admittedly, while not every single joke in the pilot lands the same way, I did not. I think I was able to laugh quite a few times, and it wasn't keeping me at track personally, but there is an understanding, at least from this first pilot, of what makes the Trek universe work, and to poke fun at the aspects that don't make a whole lot of sense. Granted, there is a lot of typical raunchy, quote unquote adult jokes in there. It's more like, words that obviously could not be said on the actual show. Check. Characters stripping off the uniforms and getting covered in guns in order to get something they need. Oh yeah. Characters getting a bit too deep into the cups of the 10 forward. You better believe it. But the show is definitely not as cynical as Rick and Morty typically is. Four seasons have explored the archetype of a relatively misanthropic like Emmett Doc Brown and one of pessimistic Marty McFly, different ends. And if there's anything that kind of reminds me of, it's kind of like See Life 2021 in some respects, in which it's definitely not high art or anything like other her anime shows are going to be, but it's definitely got its fair share of bits that make me laugh. I mean, and some of the Easter eggs. I mean, they're alien races that I have not seen on screen in years. And the animation itself is at least passable. Between both the character design and the CG, at the very least for a mid-season episode of Futurama, like a bit in the opening where a ship gets sucked into a quasar or just turns away from what I think might be the Battle of Wolf 359, but I'm not entirely certain. I'd like the whole thing like it's like a brighter version of the Enterprise D's interior, like the L cars panels and the crew's uniforms being slight tweaks. I think I may have seen those exact versions of Star Trek Online, but it's been a while since I played it. To be honest, I mean, for the most part, it definitely does a better job of justifying its existence than say Thundercats Roar did. And especially since it's also better than what I've seen of the infamous Star Wars Detours, which I'm seriously considering looking at, depending on what happens. And yeah, I mean, and that's where Jerry O'Connell getting bitten by something, and also coughing up black uh, goo all over the ship. It's still more dignified than it's than his role in Kangaroo Jack, to be honest. Hindsight. I for some reason. And I honestly don't mind some of the bits. It says, well, with this, what I think is an Orion ensign with they doing her best as impression of I don't know, because trying to put this into words in and of itself is kind of a tricky task. I said before that I'd be supporting both the goofy Orville, which is technically made by different people, but still was equal parts loving homage and spoof like this one is trying to be, as well as a dark, often dramatic nature of both Discovery and Picard. I gotta say that the franchise is in an interesting place right now. There's talk of rebranding, Alexis, as well as as the new Viacom, willing to share their content as well as produce it as a non-exclusive way, because their exclusivity deal with Prime, I am fairly recently lapsed. Their stuff is still on there, but they're not going to be locked down. Like some stuff is going to be licensed out to Netflix and Hulu and stuff like things, because it's also not the first time Trek has been animated. Like it was complete. There was the now mimetic animated series, which may or may not be canon depending on who you ask, that tried to recreate the hour-long primetime format of the show into a half-hour Saturday morning format in the 70s by Filmation, and it was, for lack of a better word, completely insane. Not quite as insane as like their later work on Master Universe and its sister series would be, but in that ballpark. There's also talk of like Nickelodeon wanting to make their own Trek series, which could work. If they, depending on what happens with it, I could see them doing something kind of similar to like the Avatar: Last Airbender or Batman animated series, which they take, or even, or to some extent, the recent TMNT cartoons, which both of them they take the audience seriously because they're writing for that audience rather than in spite of it. But all this at the same time, even if this first episode it definitely is not the best work I've seen. it hasn't left the same quiet impression as that Discovering Picard did, but at the very least, I've been wanting to see where it goes from here. I mean, oh, if I'm being totally honest, but that's all for now. Now, if you have seen this episode, feel free to let me know what you think of it and what do you think will happen with this series going forward, and I will see you all again soon. Live on and prosper.